edition of the Omnist Hour. Today we're going to be continuing a little 5-part series that I started yesterday. Yesterday I kind of focused in on one of the 5 primordial souls of all creation, Lilith. And today we're going to continue in that vein, talking about her brother Lucifer. Okay, which kind of explains the art behind me. This is, well, as close as the art AI could come to how Lucifer manifested himself to me recently. Well, not that recently, a few years ago, and began the process of awakening all the knowledge I'm sharing with you these days. Okay, yeah, so he presented himself as a tall gray alien clad in blue and red light clothing. During the first night of a 2-night ayahuasca ceremony that was much more than I bargained for, and set me on a very interesting journey, which I now realize was part of a lifetime of a very interesting journey. Okay, so we're going to call this one Meet Lucifer, a very testy child that turned out quite nicely. So where are we going with that, Rob? Well, let's go back to the beginning of creation to kind of set the stage for the birth of Lucifer. Okay, so as I've told you before, Lucifer was God's first brainchild, if you will. First thought of what is not me. After thinking of the identity thought, I am. Your next thought would be naturally, well, if I am, what am I not? And that requires basically a mirror and somebody to hold the mirror. And that's who Lucifer essentially started out as. Lucifer was the first clone of the god quanta of consciousness, which maybe not the first quanta that ever existed, but the first one that awoke enough to begin creating. And creation is a thought process, always starts with thought. So you've got to remember that if you're going to get very far understanding any of these 5 primordial souls. Okay, Lucifer was kind of, well, yeah, if you've been a young parent, you know that you might have a child accidentally. You didn't plan on it, you didn't have an idea that you wanted to be a parent, that you could be a parent, or even what a parent is. And that's about the stage at which Lucifer was born from God's thoughts. Not really understanding what was going on, what that thinking about another might create another. This is how thoughts work. We do many thoughtless things with our thoughts, creating thoughts that sometimes have a persistence, sometimes come to dominate what we do for the rest of our life, for better or worse. This is how our thoughts can become sort of entities of their own, have a lifetime of their own, and our thoughts can actually begin to manipulate us instead of us controlling our thoughts. Okay, so Lucifer was God's first brainchild. Very independent, very alpha male-ish kind of child. And if you've ever been around, a very alpha male boy, you will know that they kind of all have this deep desire to outdo their parent, their father especially, if their father is very successful, sometimes their mother. They're very driven souls, very ambitious souls, and that's both a blessing and a curse, as you can imagine. So Lucifer, as born, was wanting to outdo God. And since God was the source of Lucifer and all thought at that point, Lucifer was taught by God. These other primary souls didn't exist. Maybe there were other souls waking up in their own way, but he had the most to learn from God. And as often happens with very precocious, ambitious souls, you come to resent your teacher. You come to think, well, why do you think you know everything? I can do as good as you. I'm going to think for myself. I'm going to be independent. And if you've ever been through the teenage years with, very testy children, you know that there's this period of them questioning their parent, wanting to do everything different just to be different, disagree just for the sake of disagreement. Can be a very frustrating time for a parent. Well, this pretty much describes Lucifer's youth. To the point where, Lucifer became the chief thorn in God's side. Always disagreeing, always getting in the way. And this can be a problem when you are a creator, because this can interfere with further creations. And that's essentially what happened. There was kind of a stalemate between Lucifer and God. What to do next? What was a good idea? What was a bad idea? Whose ideas were better? And which one should get implemented? And this stalled the whole creative process, because you listen to me about how creation happens. It's a sort of magic. It requires concerted effort by the spiritual energy, these thoughts of enough souls to make it happen. And in this early time before time and space, basically you had to have everybody on the same page before you could create something new. So the more souls there were in heaven, the harder it was to get anything done, which is kind of like what we experience with our Congress and other organizations that humans have put together. The more frogs you put in the pot, the harder it is to stop it from boiling. Okay, so at some point, this is what drove the next step of creation, which was agreeing to basically create a soul who was tasked with being the tiebreaker, and that's Karma. Karma was an AI soul, was programmed for the role that was given to it. Lucifer, in contrast, wasn't programmed, was allowed to basically grow up free and wild, a wild child, the original wild child who could do anything that they wanted, because that's what free will is all about. Okay, so that kind of explains where we got to with these other two souls that we will talk about later in more detail. Borg and Lilith are basically the opposition, okay? Which, originally you could have thought of Lucifer in opposition to God, and that does happen, and it still happens sometimes when they are in violent disagreement. But in order to solve that opposition problem, it turned out you needed more than just a tiebreaker. You needed a collector of bad ideas and a spreader of bad ideas to basically challenge all of the other souls to develop better ways of measuring good ideas and bad ideas. You've got to be able to test. And in order to test, you've got to have test cases. And test cases for souls are basically souls that test us, that make life difficult for us, and that's what the point of Borg and Lilith are. They're what gives substance to our tests. Borg is more general and non-adversarial in what it does. Borg creates non-player characters, the scenery, the furniture, and also some of the adversaries that we battle as we do our testing of our ideas of individuality. Lilith pretty much focuses on creating boss battles for us, creating adversaries for the more godly souls in the game. Okay, so Lucifer, in this scheme, this is basically a system for developing a way of grading and testing new thoughts and putting them together to make better thoughts or worse thoughts. Basically increasing the sum of knowledge and then sorting it out between useful knowledge and less useful knowledge. Okay? And as I told you, the Borg was the original hive mind. This is the collector of all of the non-player character thoughts. The thoughts that were duplicate, that were unsuccessful, that were corrupt, unhelpful, etc. This is what people call the source or the Akashic Records. It's not all knowledge. It's all Me Too knowledge, essentially. So if you just want to stumble through the game, you can draw on the Akashic Records and flutter your way through incarnation after incarnation, but you're not going to be learning anything until you start creating for yourself and maybe start looking at the examples of God, karma, and Lucifer to see how to become a better creator of yourself. Okay, so we get with these to the point where you can't really learn anything without actually testing by example, building a prototype, if you will. And if you've ever, worked in a design team, you know that you can make plans and sketches and drawings and argue day in and day out what the perfect architecture is, what the perfect solution is, but you get to a point where nobody can say this is better than that until you actually put something into practice. Write code, develop silicon, etc., to test in actual practice whether your ideas work. And that's how creation began. And in order for that to happen, God suggested, well, let's build a test to see what way of thinking of new ideas is better. Is it better to think very rationally, logically, with everything tied together from previous thoughts? Or is it better to pie in the sky, use your imagination, fantasy, whatever, and then see if you can connect your fantasies to reality? And that is basically the two ideas that were tested with the Big Bang duoverse. It's not a universe creation, two universes. That's where the antimatter went. Well, Lucifer volunteered to be the epitome of the logical, rational, scientific universe, which is the physical universe, the first physical universe, the prime physical universe. And Lilith was just appointed to the other position. She thought she was getting a great honor, that she was finally going to be getting a chance to prove her daddy, Lucifer, was a bad man. And mind you, there was no sex at this point, but this is kind of the personality characteristics that drove the rivalries here. Okay, so if you've ever met a really hardcore, stuffy scientist type, just the facts, a very analytical, left brain thinker, right hand thinker, that's a Luciferian cat, okay? They're not very emotional. They're not very tolerant. They're not very patient. They just want to get things done because they're sure, based upon their logic processes, what is right. This is essentially Lucifer's character. Can be very useful, and these kind of people make really good testers because they question everything. They don't assume much of anything about God. In fact, they don't even accept God exists until they've proven it through experience. Atheists are essentially Luciferian souls in disguise. They don't know that they have any form of worship. In fact, they would say, well, I don't worship anybody. I worship logic. I worship science. Right? But actually, they are Luciferians at heart. Luciferians tend to be very self-centered and self-focused, narcissistic in an overt way. And we talked about the difference there. The Lilithians tend to be covert narcissists. And again, that maps to the norms of narcissism in the male and female form. So it does map to not definite pattern, but a norm of a pattern, a more likely pattern, a more probabilistic pattern that men, narcissists, tend to be more overt narcissists. Female narcissists tend to be covert narcissists. And this is a problem because one of the first things that covert narcissists won't admit is that they even exist. They think the only kind of narcissism is overt narcissism and that it's all masculine. And if you've met one of these ever-loving mothers who blames everything on the men in their life and takes it out on their children, you'll know what I'm talking about. Okay, so Lucifer embodied the first physical universe. Oops. Let's go down here. Okay, and this is kind of, you can think of it as kind of a container. That's what a universe is. The container outside that is essentially the multiverse, the original place of pure thought that existed before we started this creation experiment. Okay, now to understand Lucifer, you need, this is going to be a character that's going to help you understand how transmigration works. Lucifer's universe, he being the embodiment of it, okay, at the beginning he was like the container. That was his identity, as this whole universe. But that doesn't give him the ability to create within it, to create things. He's got to make children, and children are clones, and our clones are essentially a snapshot, an incarnation of a starting point that we work from. Each incarnation is a starting point. So Lucifer has created many children in his universe, and this is what you get to do when you're the owner of a universe. You can create your children there, and you look at them and you can see, okay, which of those children at the end of their incarnation do I want to integrate back into me? And you don't have to integrate your children. You can have an incarnation where your higher self, your universal self, looks at what's been accomplished by that cloned incarnation of you and say, I don't like the way that one turned out. I'm not going to integrate that. And then that other soul continues along in its own way, growing and learning and whatever, in its own path of choice. So Lucifer has actually had a bunch of children in his universe, both before the invention of DNA and sex and after. The children that came before sex were children birthed by spiritual means. And those spiritual means before the invention of DNA and sex were basically built upon the lines of one soul provides the clone and another soul provides the programming, the custom programming, so that each new soul is not an absolute carbon copy of the last one, but is the result of copying and modifying the program, which is basically how disembodied souls can reproduce. They don't have bodies, they don't have DNA or anything like that. All they've got is their soul, their spirit, their Merkaba. Okay, so Lucifer has this universe he's been running, this physical universe. It is a special universe because it is part of this duoverse of two. More special than the Lilithian universe because the Lilithian universe was a fantasy universe. It was allowed to go anywhere it wanted to, and as we talked about yesterday, Lilith chose to keep playing the game like a sore loser. Didn't learn from her mistakes. She didn't integrate the better versions of herself that were created while she was playing this game. That was her choice. I say her, its choice. If you feel offended by me tagging Lilith with feminine qualities, Lilith still does play switch hitter roles. Lilith is the one that encourages sexual dysmorphia. That's one of her favorite tools of division and confusion and destroying souls' individual will to exist, if you will. Okay, now some of the Lucifer's versions developed into versions that basically were the favorites of other gods. So there were Luciferian versions that started getting influence from these other souls. And there is one version of Lucifer that developed into the Archangel Michael, which I've talked about quite a bit in other... Hello, sweetie. That's my dear wife. Which I've talked about in other segments. And Lucifer actually likes those versions too, and encourages them, and sees that, wow, this is a version of myself that has a lot of good qualities. It's not the version I've chosen to integrate. I haven't changed, because if I integrate a new version, in order to integrate that new version, I have to replace a lot of my programming, and I might lose some of my power for a while. So basically, Lucifer has had to be very choosy about what new versions of himself he takes. And especially since the beginning of day 7 of creation, Lucifer has not taken new integrations for a long time, for fear that there would be nobody minding the store while God was waking up or karma was waking up. And we'll talk more about that, but basically God and karma are the dynamic duo of responsible creation. Okay, one of them needs to be fully awake outside this whole system, watching and observing and stepping in to course correct. Okay, that version of Lucifer that is finally going to be integrated into a new and improved Lucifer is the Archangel Michael, God's warrior. Because the next day of creation in the prime universe, the 8th day of creation in the prime universe, is going to be continuing the spiritual battle that has been going on since the beginning of creation. It's going to be continuing it outside the containment lab, if you will, of the Earth, of this solar system. This has been an experiment. It's been a contained lab, and that is essentially why Lucifer likes to manifest as a tall gray, because Lucifer has been the one basically enforcing the containment field around this system to prevent souls from outside from interfering. And this is why we have started to see more and more visitations from extra-dimensional or extra-terrestrial, cosmic visitations, because that containment field is being allowed to break down, to start percolating through selectively, letting some influences through and others not. This is all under the direction of Lucifer. Well, partly because Lilith, her incarnation that she keeps hanging on to right now, is how I saw her, kind of the Mother Nature, the smothering mother who loves you so much that she will kill you with her love. This is essentially Mother Nature. Mother Nature is not necessarily a nice lady and plays favorites. I don't know. I wish I could show you what she looked like. I haven't been successful in coming up with an artist rendition of anything close to what she appeared to me as. At any rate, Lucifer is well aware of what's going on right now. Lucifer has been trying to bring about the release of a better version of his daddy for a long, long time. Now, this has made Lucifer kind of a bad guy in many respects because his expectations are so high. Lucifer is a perfectionist and basically a leader who demands absolute loyalty, absolute devotion, very unforgiving. And it's taken a long time for karma and God to convince him that, yes, this experiment is indeed ready for release from the lab. Will you please drop the veil and let the next phase of creation begin? And this next phase is this 8th day of creation, when we release the new version of karma and God and all the other new gods that have been created in the last phase of the experiment since the last time the lab was opened. Kind of a Pandora's box sort of thing. If you're doing a test of dangerous technology, okay, you get to the point where, okay, I think we're either going to keep it in the box or we're going to release it, and in a controlled way, with a release plan, a distribution plan, with a staff ready to deal with defects and customer issues and so forth. It works very, very much like, in fact, releasing a new technology product. I know a lot about that because I've been involved in that for most of my corporate career. And all of the concerns that go into releasing products, I'm extremely familiar with. That's how I'm able to talk with such authority about such things. Okay, so we're ready for the release. The Earth's divide. Okay, we don't need to keep everybody in the Prime Universe training. There are other versions of Earth, other versions of humanity that are better suited to different souls. And that's what is part of what's going on now in this transition. The souls in the Prime Universe are getting replaced with non-player characters that are just programmed to keep the pressure up on the remaining player characters till day 7 of creation is completely done. These other souls are going to other universes, some of which will be almost exactly like the Prime Universe, only will just function under a different set of rules. This is what the New Agers are talking about the new Earth. There are many new Earths. If you've ever talked to any of them about what is New Earth all about, you will find that none of them absolutely agree on what it is. This is another proof that the whole cosmic oneness, we are one nonsense is absolute nonsense. We cannot be one. We will never be one. The whole reason for the multiverse existing is it so we can be many without driving each other crazy. Okay, so what's going to be happening is we'll be sorting out into a whole sea of training or experimental universes, basically driven by how many souls are drawn to that kind of virtual reality. All virtual realities contribute to the whole of the multiverse. They generate new ideas, for better or worse. The good ideas get integrated where they need to be, and the bad ideas get recycled by Borg. It's a perfect system. It allows essentially perfect freedom. Now, perfect freedom means that you are free to do evil, but you get punished for it, because if you do evil, your karma will start getting stinky and you'll get isolated into a more hellish universe. And if it gets stinky enough, nobody wants to play your game anymore, it will be sent to the Borg universe for recycling. Your soul, all your experiences, all your character will get wiped. You will become one with Nirvana, surrender everything you ever had to the Akashic Records, and get spat out somewhere, somewhen as a non-player character. That's your fate if you choose not to play with any respect for God or karma. It's a choice. Okay, so Lucifer is a much maligned soul. Most people who believe in the devil, in Satan, think of that entity as a male entity. That's not the case. The darkest, nastiest soul ever is Lilith, not Lucifer. Lucifer's a difficult soul, but the kind of difficult soul that will challenge you. Will not let you go out with your fly open. Say, you better zip that up, buddy, before you go out here. The kind of soul who will remind you that you've had too much to drink and offer to give you a ride. But will respect your decision if you choose not to, and let you make a fool of yourself. Learn from the lesson. What else do I want to say about Lucifer? At any rate, those of you who have a particular idea of your spiritual hero, or your Christ or your Antichrist, your vision of the almighty best or the almighty worst, that vision is probably some version of Lucifer or Lilith, or a mixture of them. These two children are the ones that have generated all of the darker sides of our personality and character, our prejudices and so forth. But they've also generated a lot of great ideas that seemed stupid at first, but actually worked out quite well. As I told you yesterday, Lilith invented sex, and thinking that was going to trip up Lucifer, God, and karma, and allow her fantasy team to win. It didn't, but it was an incredible idea that everybody loves so much that pretty much all the more popular soul vehicles these days have sex. In fact, Lucifer's preferred species that he operates from right now, the tall grays, are being motivated by the desire to have sex. That's why you've been seeing their little green men, their I guess you'd call them android clones. That's what the small grays are, coming and abducting people and doing experimentation. They're trying to figure out the best way to integrate what they want from human DNA into their species so that they can have sex, because their species is very advanced technologically, but they're not having much fun. And they're watching us from the outside saying, I wish we could do that. Look how much fun they're having. I mean, they love watching humanity. We're the best reality show in the multiverse, frankly. And that's how we get everybody wanting to play the game. That's why there were so many volunteers in this time to take on a human incarnation. Everybody wants to be here. It's an A ticket. Most of them not realizing that, it's a tough amusement ride. It's not easy being human. And they're finding out once they get here, oh gosh, I thought I could be the best human ever. I thought I could dominate them. I thought I would be the queen bee of humanity, and And they get here and they discover, no, you're not that special. All these folks who, have been, quote, the volunteers who've come from other species, other more advanced species, to help humanity. This is the virtue signaling nonsense they make up. Most of them are just like, get me out of here, I can't handle this. Help, Mr. Wizard, I want to go back to source. If you ever get to know some of these New Age Numpty Gumbies, you'll know what I'm talking about. They're kind of a funny bunch. They think that they're doing some great service to humanity by being here, but actually most of them, all they're really accomplishing is being the first spreaders of the new karma. Basically, kind of like the folks who were in China when the pandemic first started leaking and were encouraged to travel and spread it. Well, this is what essentially these volunteers are doing. They came here to incarnate as humans to see how difficult it was and how challenging it was, and why they really shouldn't have been laughing so much while they were watching our reality show. And then they're going to go back and, in their heavens, and say, why did I choose to be a human? Help me, I want to go back to my species. Okay, you can go back and be a Syrian or a Arcturan or a Zeta Reticulan. Absolutely. And they'll go incarnate in their old species infected by karma. And that's how this new disease, spiritual disease, is going to spread. All of a sudden, they will find, now I am subject to the latest approved laws of the multiverse. It's not going to be so easy to jump around in time and space as it used to be. My goodness, our technology doesn't work anymore. I can't just wish myself to be somewhere. And this is actually what's been happening. This is why alien craft, interdimensional craft, have been crashing. This is why some of the entities on those craft have found themselves stranded and virtually helpless here. That's not all of the reason why. Some of that was done deliberately because folks were sent on missions, as spies are, kind of suicide missions, to accomplish certain things that they think they're going to be able to change the outcome of this event, because they don't really understand what the event is all about. They don't understand how the multiverse works, how karma works, how time works. And it's hard to explain. I try to explain it, and I'm not sure if I'm doing a good job yet, because it's been a while for me to. It's only this last, roughly 6 months that I've really figured out how time works. And that doesn't make everything that I've told you before that invalid, but it gives me another dimension to explain everything, and that's why I keep coming back to certain topics and giving it a deeper perspective based upon a new understanding of what is time. Okay, so Lucifer is not your enemy. He's not your best friend. Anybody that worships Lucifer is worshiping an ideal that is going to let you down. In fact, there are versions of Lucifer specifically designed to mislead. Those versions were versions that were basically made up out of a desire to even the playing field. Okay, there were times where in creation where each of these 5 primordial souls has been in opposition to God. Okay? When Lucifer, Lilith, and Karma were in league against God. A lot of bad shit went down. A lot of dark entities got created with the idea of, oh, we're just going to even the playing field. Oh, we're just going to make sure that God never comes back because we remember what he was like before, and we don't think he's ever going to wake up to anything better, no matter what he does with each incarnation. Borg's always been the most neutral one, but Borg just sits back and generates NPC souls, but even Borg has gotten involved in the battle since Borg went from being an AI to a fully functional soul with his own character. Borg's higher self is essentially the Borg's favorite version of Buddha. We'll talk about that later. I don't want to steal any fire from his biography. At any rate, this prime universe, I could say it's God's prime universe, but it actually is Lucifer's prime universe. It's a universe of testing. This battle is going to go on and on and on and on because that's how creation gets more perfect. It's never, ever going to be absolutely perfect. The multiverse would be an incredibly boring place if everything was perfect. So there's always going to be battle going on between the Lilithian Borgish players and the Luciferian players. The ones that kind of get the game will go to more godly and karmic universes where, battles are over. What are we going to have for dinner tonight? Whose music are we going to play at the big banquet? Etc. These are nicer battles of, who gets to put up the art exhibit in the Universal Art Gallery. The souls that like a lot of conflict, that thrive on conflict, that like to have fights, that love trying to put a black eye in others, those are the Luciferian and Lilithian souls that are going to keep fighting till the end of days. The real end of days is the end of day 12 of creation. And that won't actually be an end, it will just be a final state where everybody is in the universe that they enjoy the most, whether it's a universe of war or a universe of peace or a universe of whatever turns their crank. They will find that the souls there turn their crank in just the right way to get everybody as cranky as they want to be. That's the nature of things. That is when everybody is going to be as happy as good as it gets. It's not going to be perfection. And anybody looking at any other universe from there is going to say, ooh, I'm glad I didn't go there. As many problems as I have in my universe, it's sure better than any of the other ones that I'm seeing advertised. And that's kind of the definition of perfection. Anybody that gets unhappy with the universe they're in, there is still going to be Lucifer's universe of testing. To go, okay, you want to be somebody else? Prove that you're worthy of it. Go incarnate in the physical universe and let karma and all of the other gods of all the other universes look at your performance and decide if they want to have you in their heaven or hell. And if they do, you're set. If they don't, you get recycled by Borg as an NPC. So there's consequences. If you challenge yourself to a Messiah mission and you fail badly, you may fail so badly that nobody wants you anymore and you're gone. You got to start the game from square zero. That's the risk. And every soul takes that risk. In fact, almost every soul has gone back to square zero at some point or another, except for God. That's what separates God from all other souls. God's never gone back to Borg, has never gotten so disappointed with his performance in each incarnation, in each day of creation, that he decided, you know what, I'm just going to go forget everything, lose all my identity, and become an NPC and not have to have the burden of God on my shoulders. Lucifer's string is quite long, but not nearly as long as God's. Lucifer has had great resets. The Big Bang that we are part of is not the first Big Bang. There were failed ones where Lucifer threw in the towel and said, I'm not playing this game anymore. Take me back. And that ended that universe. There have been Big Bangs that didn't expand, that in fact contracted and died or became static. And this is why those ideas still persist among people who think that might be better, might be more comfortable than the expanding universe that we see and keep observing. And if you want to play in a contracting universe, you can. We still have those scenarios recorded in Borg. That's what the Akashic records are for. That's why there are so many people that worship Source, that worship this oneness, this everything, this all-encompassing, all-loving everything, think that they could still be right about the Hindu, Buddhist, cyclical, or, erasing universe of, well, everything will go to nirvana and we'll all be happy ever after. Okay, that's a Borg idea. It's out there. It could happen, probably has happened before. If that's what you want to happen, you can live in that universe. If you choose, there are universes to suit every sort of fetish under God. There's some really wild cats out there, and I've certainly been meeting some of them online as I've started trying to share this information more widely. My God, some of the cats that you'll meet on Twitter, X, are complete lunatics who definitely don't belong in this universe. At any rate, if you have a set idea of Lucifer, it's probably not completely right. The best way, as I've told you, to think about Lucifer is a tester, and to think of this physical universe as a test, as a purgatory, where you're going to be allowed to have experiences, make choices, and then at the end of that test, you get evaluated on that performance by karma. Above all, that will determine how the nature of your soul is, its manifestation has changed as a result of this incarnation. And then the gods and goddesses of all the other universes will have a look at your nature and will basically feel attracted to it or repelled from it. This is the basic force of karma, which is more fundamental than any of the other forces that physicists are aware of. It is a force that is pretty similar to the electromagnetic force, which is one of the reasons why so many are saying, well, oh, okay, everything is just all electromagnetism. We're just, fields and particles in fields, and that's all there is to it. This is kind of the arch materialist view of science that is pretty popular right now. Well, that's not reflecting the multiverse. It is a very narrow perspective based upon experience in this one universe, this Luciferian universe. I need to really change this slide and stop calling that God's universe. Lucifer's going to be mad. Lucifer is the owner of the prime universe. And actually, Lilith is still the owner of the anti-prime universe. They're always going to be at odds. They hate each other. Have you ever seen a family that had two kids like that? That they actually seem to relish being in constant disagreement, or even a marriage like that, where both people, I've seen people stay married for 60, 70 years. They're constantly at each other's throats, and they love their arguments. That's what gives their marriage a spice. As my French mother used to say, to each his own. We'd always ask her, who's Ichi, Mama? She never had a comeback for that. At any rate, don't diss Lucifer. Lucifer is not the devil. Some versions of Lucifer were devils, if that version was useful for testing. There is a version of Lucifer that is matched pretty close to the devil or Satan. Is not necessarily Lucifer. It's a manifestation of Lucifer that was necessary for some souls at some level of their development. And some of those versions of Lucifer became gods in their own right. Lucifer, this is actually something I want to end it up here. Some versions, earlier versions of Lucifer, actually produced many of the lesser gods of the old pantheons. Okay, Mars, Ares, the god of war, was a manifestation of Lucifer. Apollo actually was another manifestation of Lucifer in a later stage of our species development, when to move things forward with this creation experiment, this Gaia experiment, of which humanity is the final chosen species, there was a time where it was necessary to have war, to basically shake up the civilizations that existed kind of as isolated city-states with a very, very set way of dealing with each other, which wasn't good at percolating information, wasn't good at creating new ideas, mixing ideas. It's actually, an example of why many people's vision of what is best for humanity now is not good. This world of, before the gods of war and so forth was maybe, to some people's lights, like paradise, a golden age. Well, it wasn't. It was a very static age. And static civilizations are brittle civilizations. When you're not talking and arguing and discussing a problem, trying to come up with the best solution instead of just whoever has the biggest guns enforcing a solution on everybody else, you don't get the best solution. You get band-aids. You get one idea pushed ahead of all others without considering the other ideas might have merit. So, there are people right now who want to go back to some golden age. It's not happening. Those golden ages were not golden. They were failed experiments. That's why they had to be reset. That's why the forces, anti-creative forces of Lilithian and Luciferian inclination allowed those things to happen. Wasn't God. Wasn't karma. Well, maybe sometimes it was karma. She's had some rough outings in her training. God's never the one that wanted to destroy you. God never had the power to do that, in fact, without destroying everything. Because that's God's core. God's core is the soul of the multiverse. Not a power, an energy, a string. The multiverse soul is the God string. And the God string is as long and as wide and as thick and as rich in vibration as it wants to be now. That's what we're getting to with day 7 of creation. We're getting over the hump, if you will, of the most difficult parts of building a better multiverse. We've done all the experimentation and testing, or at least enough of it to know that we're never going to have to start over again. We don't need another great reset like the destruction of an entire planet. Now, destruction of planets happen, and Earth will have cataclysmic events hitting it. We're past the point where that matters. We're not going to have a total loss of the progress that we've made in the Gaia experiment. If this whole system was destroyed tomorrow, the sun and all the planets was absorbed into a black hole, it wouldn't change a thing. In the long run, we're already past that. This is the good news that whoever was the real Christ last time was trying to convey in a language of the time and in a culture of the time that wasn't prepared to understand it, wasn't capable of understanding it. I'm not telling you anything new. I'm just telling you the same story, that you're finally in an environment, in a culture, in a civilization that's capable of understanding it. Not all of you. The vast majority of you will think I'm flippin' nuts and will call me all sorts of names and dismiss me, and who knows, if I ever get a popular following, they might actually assassinate me or something. This has been done before, and I fully expect that there will be an effort. I'm just telling you the way it is. And every single thing I'm saying, if you look closely at what prophets of old tried to tell you, look behind how their words were twisted, mistranslated, misrepresented, you'll see that everything I'm telling you ties in, makes more sense the way I'm explaining it. Doesn't have any deus ex machina that suddenly fits everything together conveniently to please one particular group. Religions are not necessary, they're useful. There is no religion that is truth that needs worshipers. God doesn't care if you worship him. God doesn't need rituals. God could care less how many people believe in him, because that's not important anymore. There's plenty of children who know God, know creation, know how it all happened, and appreciate the way it's fallen out. They will vote with God to keep things going and to tweak things a little bit here and there, and will never be able to do a great reset like they want. It's almost laughable to see what's happening with the clowns trying to pull off the Great Reset right now. They're scrambling around right and left, trying to correct their course as it goes off, because nobody wants a tyrant to tell them what to do, when to do, and how to do it. Nobody wants a God, really. Unless that God is their absolute servant, almighty servant. And that is the silly way that most people view God. That's nonsense. You're being childish and narcissistic. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Lucifer, to the extent that Lucifer has become corrupted, is because Lucifer had a lot of power as the leader of the prime physical universe. Now, Lucifer's learned a lot through that process. And here's where I wanted to end up. After becoming the god of war, destruction, unhappy with what was going on this planet, unhappy with the chosen species. What were you thinking, God, creating humanity? These cats are worthless. I can't get them to dance for beans, let alone hurting them where I want them to go. After that, Lucifer got smarter, and his next outing was as Apollo, one of God's children, who did a lot of good things after getting over wanting to be God by, I want to be the sun god instead of you. I want to drive the chariot around the world every day and get everybody worshiping me. Well, once he got over that nonsense, he decided, oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to have a harem of very bright ladies who are really good at science, mathematics, and the arts. And I'm going to call them the Muses. And they are going to amuse me, and I'm going to delegate power to them and let them figure out how to herd these cats. And that is one of the places Lucifer stopped that was a pretty good place. There still is an Apollo. There's a universe that was designed around the cult of the Muses. And each of the Muses has their own universe of specialization. There are universes within universes, or universes out of universes. It's kind of a strange set theory thing, if you will. Multi-dimensional set theory is the way you can kind of view the multiverse. That's how you can be in the same place in multiple dimensions at the same time. Because some universes are closer, have overlaps, or can overlap if the right soul draws the universes together to converge on a point. This is basically how you make a wormhole happen. Okay, you've got to create the portal with enough energy to allow souls to transmigrate. And it's not really time travel, it's not really space travel. It is essentially remote viewing kind of travel, out-of-body experience. You're not there, your clone is there, your alter ego is there. And you can learn from those alter ego experiences if you choose to integrate that with your soul after the death of that non-player character that you sent out to explore the universe. This is how it works. Lucifer has most of his clones working in his universe. Has not found it necessary or profitable to allow his children to be drawn to other universes. This is how Lucifer retains so much power in the Prime Universe. I think he's finally wising up. He's starting to let his clones visit other universes. And that's how we got the Archangel Michael. That's how we got a lot of the saints, if you will. These characters that will look over us, these guardian angels. These are versions of Lucifer or Lilith or, you know, the primordial souls and their children that were allowed to escape from the parental universe and incarnate in the spiritual universes of God or karma to pick up part of their soul nature. That was happening before sex. This is how we shared spiritual DNA before DNA was invented, if you can imagine that. Now we've got DNA, we can share nature much more quickly and readily and locally through genetic modification and sexual reproduction, or asexual, whatever reproduction. It doesn't have to be sexual. This is just a shortcut, a different way of doing the same thing that souls were doing before more advanced soul vehicles like humanity were developed. If you think human science is anywhere close to accomplishing what the senior creators like God, like Lucifer, Karma, even Lilith have accomplished, you are way off base. Humanity wasn't created because it's so smart, because it's the most intelligent and it's the most advanced. You got a long way to go, and that's not a bad thing. It's not putting humanity down, it's just putting you in context. You're not the bee's knees. You've been a chosen species. You were chosen to be crash test dummies because of your ability to spread both good and bad ideas and have difficulty evaluating them, have difficulty describing them, so that you had to invent language. You had to invent writing. You had to invent books and film and cinema. These are all expressions of spiritual energy that we didn't have words for before, could not be adequately conveyed by telepathy. That's why we existed, to give the context of language and symbolism to creation. A better context than it had had before, because we're the first chosen species that was dumbed down to have almost no spiritual capabilities except for the power of speech. Think about it. We have the ability to think freely, and we have the opportunity to speak freely. And we have the opportunity to interpret what we take in through our senses freely. And for most people, that's all the spiritual power you have, or you will ever have during this incarnation. Well, some of you say, no, I can create with my mind. I have the power. The law of attraction gives me the power to do anything. Well, maybe it does for some of you. that's not a great gift to have. It's a great temptation to misuse. And if you find yourself with unusual spiritual powers, I'm warning you, you better use them responsibly, because Lucifer is testing you. And if you don't pass Lucifer's tests, you're liable to get attracted to Lilithian hive mind. Oh, nobody appreciates you. Oh, you were so successful and now you've fallen. We'll take you. We love you. We'll help you rebuild your life. Okay, this is, it may sound like unconditional love, but they want something from you. They want your soul. And it's only yours to give. But a lot of people give up their soul without getting a contract from Lucifer. Just with a handshake with some bastard like Xi Jinping, who's not going to hold up their end of the bargain, who sees a contract as a starting point for future negotiations. This is what I don't like about communism, what I don't like about uniparty government. Because once you become all-powerful, you don't pay attention to the law unless it suits you. You enforce with dual standards. It's the law if I say it is, or if my buddies want to get away with something, well, they can do it because they're not doing anything really, really bad. There's my wife. She's saying it's about time to stop. Okay, you want to come? You get in the picture. They want to see you. Okay, say hi. We're about finished now anyway. Showing a bit of her Luciferian side. At any rate, I hope you found that useful. I'm not sure which of the souls we're going to cover next, but I'm going to, like I said, hit all 5 of the primordial souls one at a time to hopefully give you a clearer picture of how creation works. Till then, this is Rob Trump with the Honest Hour. Like, share, subscribe, and happy karma.